Hi, everyone. It's me, Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer. And joining me today is Lashonia Thompson-El. Welcome. Lashonia is joining us. There she is.
Hello, thank you so much
Hello.
for having me.
It is great to have you here. How are you?
I am well, thank you so much for asking.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, the way how we like to kick things off here is just having our guests introduce themselves to our viewers and letting us know a little bit about what you do, your background and experience. So let me start off with that.
Thank you so much. My name is Lashonia Thompson-El, and I am the Executive Director of Peaceful DC. And basically, Peaceful DC is a new foundation that is committed to frontline peacemakers here in DC. Those individuals are working on the front lines of high-risk communities throughout DC that have been plagued by gun violence. So we are serving our city's violence interrupters and outreach workers who are working to mediate conflicts and prevent shootings before they happen. One of the things that we're doing is we have launched a Peace Academy. So the DC Peace Academy has started its first cohort of 25 students, and those 25 students all work for various community-based organizations who have been funded by the district government to facilitate gun violence intervention. And so we're teaching them things like healthy masculinity, conflict resolution skills. We're helping to strengthen their mediation skills. They have participated in a Stop the Bleed course where they actually learn to tend to people who have been shot and help to stop the bleeding to obviously to save their lives. We've been teaching them things like how to be a life coach, cognitive behavior theory skills to help them understand how to help people to transform their thinking and control their emotions and therefore change their behavior. So super exciting. We have a lot of things going on, but the Peace Academy is basically our landmark program, our landmark initiative.
Amazing. I love that. I love that. And of course, right now in DC, this is something that is so much well needed. As we look at gun violence rising in the district right now, this is something that is definitely needed. Talk to me a little bit about what are some of the leading factors and situations and issues that lead to, not just our youth, but people in general getting involved, with guns and gun violence and making that, a way. Talk to me about some of those leading effects and how Peace for DC is, trying to curb those and to stimulate those to make sure that we have a more peaceful district.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's also a really difficult question because this is a multi-layered
Yeah.
problem. There are different factors that contribute to gun violence across the nation. The National Criminal Justice, let me get it right, the National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform just recently commissioned a study where they looked at the root causes of gun violence here in DC. So David Muhammad led that study, and if folks want to see it, they can go onto the CJCC website, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council website, and they can see the report that, and basically he analyzed the homicides that have taken place in DC over the last few years. And what he found is that most of those shootings and homicides were as a result of conflicts that were sometimes and most often involving women. And those conflicts basically would oftentimes get escalated, whether it be through social media or because high risk groups or high risk individuals are involved. And by that, I mean individuals who are more likely to carry guns, or individuals who have been shot in the past, or they have shot someone in the past and they have been served time for that offense and been released. And so they have identified the individuals who they believe are the drivers of gun violence here in our city, and they're calling them the people of promise, because the idea is if we treat trauma and if we transform communities that have been plagued by gun violence, and if we train our frontline workers to help them to be able to help people that they serve, the high-risk individuals, to develop impulse control and just learn different ways of resolving conflict and also changing norms. Because unfortunately, in some of our neighborhoods that have been plagued by gun violence for decades, gun violence has become sort of normalized.
Yes,
And when
yes.
people have conflicts, to shoot someone is the go-to move. And so the job of our frontline peacemakers is to introduce alternative ways of resolving conflicts and helping to introduce people who are dealing with complex trauma, helping them to understand how to develop impulse control and how to change their thinking, control their emotions, and also create new norms and deal with things more peacefully. And so also, we know that, like I said, trauma, poverty, racial injustice, social injustice, over-policing, mass incarceration, all of these things actually make gun violence worse.
Certainly. And so now with the Peace Academy, there is something that is there for people to be able to come to and to learn. How does one do that? How does one get involved with the Peace Academy? Do people reach out to specific people? Do you have to apply? Like, how does that work?
So we have about 10 community-based organizations that have been funded by the district to implement community violence intervention. And those CBOs have violence interrupters and outreach workers and case managers and credible messengers who work for them, but they work in the neighborhoods where they have relationships, where they have credibility and influence, and they work with the individuals who are at high risk of engaging in gun violence or potentially being victims of gun violence. So those CBOs, those community-based organizations, they nominated their students to attend the Peace Academy. And the Peace Academy, as I said, is doing all the amazing things that I talked about earlier. We had last week, we had Dr. Mitchell. He used to be our chief medical examiner. He basically used to run the coroner's office. He's teaching leadership. He's teaching the public health approach to understanding gun violence intervention. We have experts across our city who are coming in to teach our frontline workers what they believe that they need to know and what our frontline workers have expressed that they need to know in order to be able to do a better job in detecting conflicts and preventing shootings. And we are also doing some coalition building with the heads or the leadership of those community-based organizations, because what we found is we have about 200 peacemakers on our front lines in various neighborhoods, but there's not a lot of collaboration and cohesion. People are not working together as well as they could be. And so we want to be the entity that brings all of those organizations and all of those people together so that we can build strategy and action together.
Wonderful. Of course, we all want peaceful streets here in DC, and we're looking forward to, seeing how, as this work continues, safer communities, more livable communities, and, people just working out their issues, working out their disputes, working out their conflicts with cooler heads and, with a lot of thoughts put into it where, someone doesn't, fall down that road of gravitating to gun violence. When you look at for the future of the city, for the future of DC, what do you envision, when it comes to safer communities for everyone?
I envision a community where kids can play, a community where kids can be on the playground and we can reclaim public space and people can feel safe outside. I envision restorative schools, schools where young people have the opportunity to heal trauma or build resilience to trauma, and also create opportunities for us to disrupt a generational cycle of violence in some of our communities. And I envision a community where the most vulnerable individuals in our city can thrive, where they can get living wage jobs and become homeowners and have great hospitals and restaurants and grocery stores. And so I think that it's going to require training our frontline workers to do the transformational work that we're talking about, but also it's going to require a transformation of the society in general, right? Shifting power and giving those directly impacted individuals a seat at the table and a voice to actually influence the policies and the programs that we're creating. Because one good problem that we have in DC is that we don't have an issue with money, right? Like, we can afford to address these problems. Our problem is that we're not necessarily doing the deeper work, and we're not touching all of the neighborhoods that actually need support. Like, even now, with having 200 frontline workers, there are still some neighborhoods that remain uncovered, that don't have violence interrupters and programs and pro-social services that are dedicated to their communities. Some communities have more support than others, depending on how active that community is. And so we want to see, we believe that violence is a disease, and we want to see the cure or the antidote or the tools spread throughout the city in all of the areas where they are needed, so that we can actually end the violence, opposed to just suppressing it and moving it from one area to another. So I imagine a community that is able to thrive and be safe and prosperous.
That's a beautiful vision. It's a beautiful vision. Now, how can people find out more about Peace for DC? How can they support, donate, follow, and just keep up with everything that Peace for DC is doing?
They can find us on www.peacefuldc.org. They can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at peacefuldc. And like I said, we serve the community-based organizations. And so I encourage people to look them up, look up Cure the Streets, look up the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And there's a way that you can support the frontline peacemakers, whether it be through, partnering with Peaceful DC, or even working directly with those community-based organizations that are doing great work in our city.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lashonia, for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure getting to talk to you, getting to learn more about Peace for DC and the Peace Academy. And thank you so much for the work that you continue to do in improving lives and creating safer and more livable communities. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. You have a great day.
Thank you so much. And if you want to follow Team Racine Productions, please follow us at Team Racine on all forms of social media. Click around our YouTube channel and check out the rest of our interviews, vlogs, and forums. And while you're there, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. But most of all, thank you for watching. Bye, everyone.